Wait, no, that was... Yeah, no, I'd moved on from that. Yeah. See, this is why my commentary gets dry, you know? I find it quite the unique skill to be able to talk reasonably, rationally, and sensibly, and play a game competently at the same time. But then again, that's why people throw in for Let's Plays, don't they? To watch people make fools of themselves, and that's very easy to do when you're talking and playing at the same time. One or the other, if not both, is going to suffer. You're a lucky man if it's not both that suffer. Perhaps if I discuss something simpler than advanced avionics engineering. What does it say about my brain that I immediately started thinking of, like, more complex things to discuss? Do you know what a differential, like, transmission is? They use it to run tanks! It's fun! Technically, it's used in a lot of skid-to-steer systems. Except in the civil sector, because those use... a hydraulic transmission, which actually begs the question why tanks don't just, you know, do that. But no, tanks run on a skid-to-steer propulsion system, like a normal car orients its wheels, either the front or the back, like it'll be the back wheels if it's like a forklift. It orients the wheels in the direction that you want to, you know, travel.
Glad you came.
And the issue is that a tank can't do that because it doesn't have wheels. I think the music bugged out because it's playing the menu music during a match. Anyway, tanks are by far not the only thing to use a skid-to-steer control system. You've got a bunch of, like, those industrial front loaders that do the exact same thing. The issue is, or the principle of operation is that a differential amount of power between two, you know, lines of wheels, or tracks, in this case it would be tracks, produces a turning force that makes the vehicle want to, you know, skid to one side. It's incredibly simple in concept, actually simpler probably than the geometry necessary for a steering wheel. The problems come when it's like, okay, so how do we split the power?
Good to see you.
Now that's a cinch in like little RC things that are benefited by like the square cube law of size and weight, and have little electric motors for each little wheel or each little tread. It becomes an issue when you're talking about something that's like 60 metric tons. Then you gotta get creative.
Hey there.
So what was the first solution? World War I, they used a dual drive system. So 2 engines, 2 transmissions, and you had a wide range of turning capability, because you could alter the throttle per engine, or you could change the gear setting per engine. So you had a wide range. The trouble was synchronicity, because if there is any discrepancy between the 2 engines' outputs, it's going to skid. So if you're just trying to go in a straight line, you're going to have problems. So then they're like, okay, well, we don't, like, necessarily need 2 engines. Why don't we just have 1 engine piped through 2 transmissions, and then you achieve your various turning radii by, you know, changing the gear setting per transmission. This created other problems. First of all, you have a set of distinct turning radii that you have to deal with. I probably missed one. Doesn't matter. You have a set of distinct radii that you have to deal with, because you don't have that, like, throttle control over it anymore. And there's also the issue that if you're in first gear, if you're, like, traveling at a low speed, you don't really have a turning radius, because the turning radius is made from a difference between the 2. Which means that if they're both at 1, because that's how slow you're going, you don't really have an input. Unless you have separate clutches, and then you can slip the clutch. Not stellar. And then they came up with, like, differential transmission. There's differential transmission, there's double differential transmission, there's triple differential transmission. Oh, it goes off into space, man! And I bet all of you just thought it was cool to have a big gun and make a grinding sound into combat.
Good to see you.
If you have ever serviced a tank, And I haven't, but I've done my homework. If you've ever serviced a tank, those guys spend more time fixing the damn thing than they do operating the damn thing. And honestly, that's part of the reason why North America, even though most countries are going to, like, auto-loaded cannons, I mean, we talk about how it's for safety, because auto-loaded cannons usually need the ammunition stored in the turret, which means that you don't have the benefit of, like, blowout ammo racks that help, if you suffer a hit in your ammo containment area, prevent everybody in the thing from, you know, dying. Like, Soviet tanks are infamous for, like, the turret to have been blown off, because they have, at the bottom of the turret basket, the shells for the autoloader, and if it gets hit in the wrong place, those shells go off and literally blow the turret off the top of the tank like a fucking cork off of a bottle. So they claim it's a safety thing, and yes, the Abrams isolated ammunition storage and blowout ammo racks are great for safety. But the real reason that we have retained our manually loaded thing is so that you can have an excuse and room for another guy in the tank. Not to load it, but to service it. Because, I mean, tank tracks are in and of themselves like hundreds of individual moving parts. And if any one part breaks, your tank doesn't move anymore. Oops. Well, no sense crying over a spilt soldier. I didn't see him there. Besides, it was probably military anyway, couldn't recruit him. Hey, buddy! You're not standing next to high explosives. Smart.
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's often touted that the biggest menace to any tank is not an enemy shell, it's not any particular type of terrain. It's literally just the fact that tanks break down a lot, because they have a lot of internal shit going on, and it breaks frequently, and you gotta deal with it.
Hey there. Glad you came.
Oh, 2 engineers, it's Christmas!
Hey there.
There, I've balanced the karmic debt. I saved that guy's life. Sort of. Maybe he could have handled it. Who am I kidding? He's got a pistol. I've seen these guys during the militia training missions. He would have died. That 4 there? Oh no, I started here. Did 1. I can usually differentiate 2 because it's usually a very small, like, claustrophobic area. Yeah, this fits the bill. We're in mutant country. What are you doing here, zombie? Yeah, I mean, I think the Abrams, which is sort of like the tank to know if you're in North America, because it is our front runner. The M1 Abrams uses the triple differential transmission. If you can find like a 3D model of it or a video showing how that works, yeah, do it. Have fun trying to figure out exactly what's happening in the model, because it's a transmission that completely independent of like gearbox like changing and all of that has got like 1,000,000 parts. And if any one of them break, your tank doesn't work anymore. And unlike a broken track or something, That's a lot harder to get in there and fix, because you're talking about an engine that probably weighs as much as a car. I mean, honestly, tanks run down their sort of user serviceability very quickly, which is why if tanks can be transported on, like, flatbed wheeled trucks to a combat zone, they will be. Because that just saves maintenance on the tank. Just put it on a flatbed, on like a semi-pulled thing, and make that work.
Can I help you?
That's sort of why it became real hip a while back to just like, oh, well, we could make like an 8-wheeled vehicle and put a tank cannon on it, and that's sort of like what they were trying to do with the Striker combat vehicle, which, like, I don't think that ever actually entered formal service. I mean, we used them in Iraq and Afghanistan, but we didn't actually, like, yeah, this is going to be our new infantry fighting vehicle, and it might even replace tanks someday. No. No. Because, I mean, all the sort of problems that you'd have with a fucking triple differential transmission operating the skid-to-steer of a tank, if you've got 8 wheels and, like, one powertrain that feeds into the whole thing, you need one differential just to split that into 2, another 2 differentials to split that into 4, and then another 4 differentials to split that into 8, so that you have power going to every wheel. And then, of course, there's turning geometry, so it's like, no, fucking thank you, I'll stick with the damn tracks! And you're still reliant upon, like, road tires for not, you know, sliding around on just little metal wheels. And those can be popped. As much of a pain in the ass a tank is, trying to replace it with something with conventional wheels just, like, doesn't work. Honestly, it comes to the point where you start thinking to yourself, like, maybe, instead, we should, like, have something that walks. God, walking vehicles. In concept, incredibly fascinating. I'm a mecha nut. I've played Robot Alchemic Drive. If you don't know what Robot Alchemic Drive is, perhaps I will enlighten you in the future. But walking tanks, or even just walking vehicles, raise so many questions, and so many, like, practical concerns. Although, if you're, like, that interested, talk to the South Koreans, because they created Method 2, and Method 2 is a bona fide walking robot that you ride in. Like, it's got, it looks, the cockpit's a bit like the amp suit from, like, James Cameron's Avatar. It literally looks like an amp suit. And it works. Like, you tilt the stick forward and it walks. The reason it hasn't gotten more notoriety is because it still has only operated in a tethered capacity. Meaning, there's like a rail grid on the ceiling of the lab, and the lab is like a big warehouse-sized area. And they've never actually unhooked it from the safety cables because operator safety, the fact that, like, if the machine should fall over, millions of dollars worth of damage just to the robot. So it hasn't gone, at least last time I checked, for a free walk yet. Like, walking without any supporting structure. But in theory, at least, it's perfectly capable of that. So yeah, it's a mecha. It is a bona fide walking robot, and not like those cheap skidding robots that they did in, like, Mecha Wars or whatever a while back that have wheels underneath that selectively brake and all that crap. Or Karatas, which it's like, oh, it has 4 legs. Yeah, and they all end in wheels. And it can't actually take a step. What you've done is create extremely inefficient suspension for a 4-wheel vehicle that's got arms. I mean, if it's not capable of, like, dynamic plane navigation, it's not walking. I mean, by that metric, you could call vehicles that use the planar mechanisms, like the clan linkage or the strand, whatever. You could call stuff like that walking machines. And it's like, yeah, but they're not. It's basically just... I mean, it's cool in concept that you have this mechanism that converts, like, a constant rotating input, like you have in a car, into a sort of walking cycle of a mechanical foot. But it has no sensitivity to the environment, no ability to adjust its position. So what inevitably happens is... I'm surprised I still have room on the team. What inevitably happens is the thing... It skid to steers for control. And if you go over rough terrain, like something that's not paved, you run into other problems.
Glad you came.
Yeah, and honestly, I hate to say it, even though Method 2 is like a Korean thing, we have the Japanese to thank for it. Back during their high heyday of, like, the 90s, where, like, Japan was, like, experiencing that economic boom, and people thought, like, the Japanification of the world was going to happen, which it didn't, because
Good to see you.
it didn't. And anime is still everywhere. I guess people can be satisfied with that, at least. But no, like, Honda, the whole Asimo project, which was mighty magnanimous of them. I mean, it's not like they didn't earn money, let's be fair, but... Honda started the Asimo project with E0, I think it was E0, which was Experiment Zero, and in a word, crude. Like, it could only walk forward. It couldn't actually turn. Now, it could dynamically adjust its walk for, like, different terrain features, but what you had was basically a really inefficient but very sophisticated wind-up toy. Then E1 could actually, like, negotiate terrain. It was actually walking, and it had more degrees of freedom. And then, of course, they went all the way through E7, which looks like it has a microwave. It literally looks like a pair of legs coming out of a microwave. And, of course, the key point there was that it doesn't have, It didn't have arms yet. And then you look at P1, which was the first prototype, and it kind of looks like a refrigerator with arms and legs. Looks like C-3PO's, hunchback cousin. Then, of course, they, like, skinned P2, and they made efficiency improvements, and it was all fine. And then P3 came along, which was basically just Asimo, only bigger. The problem, or not the problem, the thing is that, okay, so they made Asimo and all that, but they made P3, and then later, when they, like, retroactively improved P3 with Asimo tech, P4, they made that, like, leasable by other countries to jumpstart their own robotics paradigm. And China jumped on board, and Korea jumped on board, and Korea had the Human Robotics Project, or HRP, and HRP-1 is literally just P3. Like, the Koreanized version of it. And from there, they improved, and they made P2... Or, no, they made HRP-2C, which is the one that actually looks like an anime robot. And then there was HRP-3, which nobody remembers. And then there was HRP-4, which was the one that actually looked... That was the Actoroid, the one they put, like, rubber skin on and made it like a woman. And it was Hatsune Miku in a thing, and, like, that was... Everybody thought that was really cool, because it was quite slender in frame compared to the ones that preceded it. Like, that is one point I'll give the sort of Korean HRP design. Its battery life is probably shit, but it has a waist joint that does more than swivel, because that's all Asimo can do is swivel at the waist. That's part of the reason Asimo can't get up if he falls over. I find that robots that can get up when they're knocked over have a waist pivot. Asimo can just swivel. So if he ends up on his back, he's a turtle. But HRP-2 and 3 could get up if they were knocked over, and in addition to that extra waist joint, they were also much slimmer than Asimo. They didn't have that big backpack, which is, let's be real, that's either the battery or the computer. Like, that is the thing that would single-handedly take up the most space. So either its guts are on its back, its energy-providing battery, or its brains are on its back. But yeah, I have to figure, because I'm not saying this with any, like, concrete knowledge, I have to figure that Method was probably given some inspiration, let's say, by HRP. And so, even though the first actual walking giant robot thing came out of Korea, it still technically was sourced in Japan. Weird tangents. I have to go on weird tangents. I mean, this is the boring part of the game. I'm just running around zone after zone after zone, gathering people again. This is the third... Is it the third time or the second time I've done it? I don't know, but it already feels like it's been too much. Okay, well, we have rambled on. I know the time is now. I'm not singing this song. But we got a bunch of engineers, we got some captains, which means we can, like, do the general on one of our towers. Maybe? What do we have here? Don't I need two... Yeah, I need 2 captains for a general. Ah. Well, it's not like we really need the stuff here. If I wanted, like, grenade launchers and shit, I'd want it in mutant country. But what we can do is get some factory stuff running. This outpost isn't complete. We actually are good in money again. But if I'm gonna start, like, refining Zone 2 here, and then of course proceeding into the next one and so forth and so on, we're not gonna be able to actually use that money because we're gonna need it for other things. God, this factory isn't even producing. Let's get that tower bumping and pumping, and, you know, and then we can get on with our lives. Actually, wait, that's one thing I didn't check. I wanted to, like... Yeah, no, let's get base productivity going in, like, these other locations first. Factory level 1 at a... So, defense here should be pretty straightforward. Whoa, who's getting behind us? What is it with the rage injection that locks my directional inputs? Oh, that's a big one. Hey, the factory's done. Did they destroy my tower? Hey there, big guy. It's not destroyed. Why'd I get kicked out of it? we go. Problem solved. Double cannon, so you need... Sniper? You're supposed to be gun cannon... No, gun rocket, gun cannon... rocket gun, cannon gun. So yeah, this needs a gun. For the cannons, we use the sniper. Probably should have done this one first. Come at me! Bring it on! Oh, well, somebody was listening. I look too much like the other guys. I'm starting to lose myself. Get off my tower. Well, that's defense covered. Ow! My rocket turret! There's more! Oh, they just lost all interest in what was going on. They're just standing there. Oh, we're not gonna go anywhere near that. Hey, what's that over there? Oh, shit! And we need engineers, I think, for the next level of factory upgrades. Oh, 2 for workshops, too. Ouch! Did we put additional sections in this one? I think we did. How many engineers do I have again? Quite a few. We're not actually going to be hurting for them for a while. Although, they're what's making more money, because they make more than the citizens do. Benefit of your college education! Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. Anyway...